Om Ajnanathimiranthasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpata Rubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mokam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langaite Girim Yat Kripatam Hamvande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam. Hare Krishna devotees, thank you for joining. So we'll continue from 13th verse. We covered up to verse 12 in the last two sessions from 18th chapter. So the theme of last or verses 1 to 12 is Karma Yoga. This is the summary of chapters 1 to 6. So how to perform actions. Acting with detachment is true renunciation, and that brings the freedom from reaction. So that is the overall summary. Summary of entire Karma Yoga is given. So now Jnana Yoga is discussed in the next section. 13 to 18, knowledge. Knowledge is discussed. So you perform action, but to perform action in a detached spirit, one needs to have a right knowledge. So that is going to be discussed in this section. Yeah, so we discussed about, Arjuna asked question about what is sannyasa and what is tyaga, right? What is the difference between the two? So Lord Krishna answered in this section, renouncing one's prescribed duties. First he answered what is renunciation, what is tyaga. Renouncing the fruits of action is most important, right? More than renouncing action itself. Yeah. And renunciation in three modes is discussed. Renunciation in mode of illusion or ignorance, right? Renunciation in the mode of ignorance is you just give up your activity out of illusion, right? I don't want to do this because some, incorrect reasoning or laziness, people give up sometimes work. So that is all renunciation in ignorance. And out of fear, if somebody gives up the work, that is passion. And if one performs work with a detachment, doing work as duty, that is called renunciation in goodness. And that will have no reactions, right? So I'll not go about this section. We'll go to 13th verse. Yeah. So this is the section we'll discuss today. So the conclusion of Sankhya and Vedanta is this. What is that? Action directed by the super soul brings freedom from reaction. We all perform action, but if it is directed by Paramatma within the heart, that will bring the freedom from reaction. So you will not have reactions to the work. So how Paramatma is playing a role is something we need to understand. So in every action, there are multiple factors. We may think we performed the action, right? We only consider the prime act. We consider the soul or the self as the prime actor in any action. But actually, through Jnana, we understand actually there are 5 factors for any action. We'll discuss that in the 13th verse. And what is the most important actor is going to be discussed. That is actually the sanctioner or the super soul. Super soul is the sanctioner. Even though rest of the 4 factors are contributing to the action, it will not be performed unless the super soul sanctions. So super soul plays the pivotal role, right? And then how one can get liberated only if one's actions are directed by super soul, right? So what does it mean to perform actions by the direction of super soul is something we need to discuss. Otherwise, we cannot apply that knowledge practically in our life, right? So we'll discuss that. So let's read the words. So this is the 5 factors of actions are discussed here, but anyway, we'll read the words so we can have more context. So basically, the relation between the first section and this is that in the first section, we discussed about renunciation and also or tyaga, right? And sannyasa, especially tyaga is important. One should detach from the fruits of action. So to really detach, one needs knowledge. So that knowledge about what is part of work, what are the factors part of the work. So that we are discussing in this section. So jnana. So previously, what we discussed is called karma yoga, and karma, when it is, influenced by jnana, then only karma yoga can be performed ideally. So one needs to have this jnana about actions. Then he can perform detached work. So let's read this verse. Panchaitani mahabaho.
Panchaitani Mahabaho.
Panchaitani means 5. Mahabaho means Arjuna, one who has, mighty arms. Karanani nibhodhame.
Karanani Nibodhame.
Sankhe kritante proktani.
Sankhe Kritani Proktani. Kritante Proktani.
Siddhaye sarva karmanam.
Siddhaye Sarva Karmanam.
Please read.
O mighty armed Arjuna, according to the Vedanta, there are 5 causes for the accomplishment of all action. Now learn of these from me.
Krishna is saying there are 5 causes for the accomplishment of all action. So any action you perform, there are 5 factors. Please read this quickly.
A question may be raised that since any activity performed must have some reaction, how is it that the person in Krishna consciousness does not suffer or enjoy the reactions of work? The Lord is citing Vedanta philosophy to show how this is possible. He says that there are 5 causes for all activities, and for success in all activity, one should consider these 5 causes. Sankhya means the stock of knowledge, and Vedanta is the final stock of knowledge accepted by all leading acharyas. Even Shankara accepts Vedanta Sutra as such. Therefore, such authority should be consulted.
Shankara should be, or previous acharyas, basically. Yeah. So Lord is citing actually Vedanta philosophy to show how it is possible, right? How these factors are involved. Yeah. Please read this also.
The ultimate control is invested in the supersoul. As it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sannivishtaha. He is engaging everyone in certain activities by reminding him of his past actions. And Krishna conscious acts done under his direction from within yield no reaction, either in this life or in the life after death.
Krishna conscious acts done under Lord's direction from within yield no reaction. So that is the kind of action one should perform. Adhishtanam tatha karta. Yeah. Please read.
Adhishtanam tatha karta,
Karanam cha prathagvidam
karanam cha prathagvidam,
vividascha prathak chesta
vividakscha prathaksheshta,
daivam chaivatra panchamam.
daivam chaivatra
Panchamam.
panchamam, sorry.
Yeah. Please read. Translation.
The place of action, the body, the performer, the various senses, the many different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the super soul. These are the 5 factors of action.
So when an action is performed, all these factors are there. What is that? Adhishtanam means the body. Body is the place where actions are performed. You initiate, and body is very much part of your actions, right? Any action you perform. And then second is the doer, the soul. Soul is the one initiating the action. The initiator is always the soul, the spirit part of the body. And then karanam, and how he performs the action, he engages his senses. So senses are called the instruments of action, right? If you are the driver, driver is the soul, the steering wheel is the karanam, or the senses. It makes the move, right? So it's called karanam, or the instruments of action. And then chasta, there are various efforts. You put energy in one direction or in the other direction to move the car, accelerate, whatever. So those are all efforts, right? Endeavors. And then finally, daivam, the super soul, right? You may desire to move the car from one place to the other, but if the car is broken by the will of Lord, or the divine factor, the car will not make any move, right? So daivam is the ultimate sanctioner, right? Even if you want to lift your hand, if your hand is already suffering with a stroke, you cannot lift the hand. So because ultimate sanction has to be given by super soul. So these are the 5 factors. One may always be considered the soul as the actual doer or the self, right? But actually there are 5 factors involved in any action. So by knowing this, one understands actually he is not the supreme cause. The supreme cause is super soul, right? Daivam. Daivam is the actual, if the divine sanction is not there, nothing will happen, right? So one should acknowledge that. Yeah, please read from here.
The Supreme Lord is the super cause. Under these circumstances, he who is acting in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the super soul situated within the heart is naturally not bound by any activity. Those in complete Krishna consciousness are not ultimately responsible for their actions. Everything is dependent on the supreme will, the super soul, the supreme personality of Godhead.
So by acting in Krishna consciousness, one's actions are actually directed by the Supreme Lord, right? So naturally, when one acts under the direction of the super soul, what happens to the actions, results of action? I'm asking. So if one's actions are, directed by the super soul, what is the net result of such actions? Any ideas? Anyone?
They don't generate any fruits, like good or bad.
Yeah, I mean, the fruit means result. Result will be there, but the reaction, the karmic reaction will not be there, because it is under the direction of the Supreme Lord. Is that clear? For example, if somebody is shooting arrows on the enemy as a soldier, right? Shooting gun, right, on the enemy. But he is acting under the commander's will. And suppose he kills 2 people. Will he get any reaction? Or will he get any punishment from the government of India? He shooted under the command of the commander, the enemy camp, people died. What will happen to him? Will he get any punishment because he killed 2 people?
No,
Why?
because that's his duty, which was ordered by the
Yeah,
commander.
yeah. So similarly, if one's actions are directed by multiple factors here, right? For Arjuna, it is Krishna. But what about us? How do we act in line with Krishna consciousness? Any suggestions from you all on how we can act such that our actions will be pure and doesn't have any reactions?
If the activities are performed with Krishna consciousness in mind, not purely for material benefits.
That's good. Yeah, that's a good approach. How do you define an activity to be Krishna conscious then? How can an activity become Krishna conscious? Like you are working for a software company or somewhere like cooking. But yeah, if you're conscious that it is for Krishna, yes. So that is a correct
You
answer.
dedicate you're aiming, you're doing the action with the purpose that the fruit of the action is connected in some way to Krishna consciousness.
Very good. Yeah. I'm trying to extract the principle out of it.
Prabhu, is it that we have to increase our intelligence by having more knowledge about Krishna consciousness and then using all the senses?
Yeah, you are close. What I'm trying to see is if the action is so based on the guidance of scripture, right? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. So you offer me with love, or he says, whatever you do for the satisfaction of me, right? So there are multiple verses that speak in that direction. So basically what I'm trying to say, if your actions are based on the guidance of scripture, especially Bhagavad Gita, that's, you can say, yes, any action you perform in that spirit, yes, that is Krishna conscious and guided by super soul, yes. So guided by scripture, actions that are Krishna conscious are directed by the super soul will not have any reactions. Okay, one. Any other things that you can think of? If not scripture, who else can guide us?
Guru.
Yeah, correct. See, if an action is under the guidance or suggestion of a guru, your spiritual master, who is a bona fide spiritual master or a pure devotee, or even a guide, a counselor, you're consulting, before you act, you're actually consulting and working under the guidance, then again it is, you can say, directed by the super soul. Very good. Yeah. So these two are the answers, practical answers. A lot of devotees ask, we don't have, Arjuna had Krishna in their life. What about us? Yeah, we have Bhagavad Gita, the words of Krishna, which have instructions for all times to come, right? So that is there. Scripture is there. Guru is there. Sadhus are there. Sadhus means other, devotees who are already advanced, who are practiced in spiritual life. We have their guidance. So we can follow any of these things to basically act under the guidance of super soul. Yeah. And when we have doubt on how to act, you're undecided, unclear what to do, we can always check with other devotees and get their inputs. So that is how we can act. Shariravan manobhiryat
Study
karma prarabhate nara nyayam va viparitam va
Nyayam va viparitam va
panchayate tasya hetava.
panchayate tasya hetava.
Please read translation.
Go ahead, Mataji.
Okay. Whatever right or wrong action a man performs by body, mind, or speech is caused by these 5 factors.
So whatever good or bad actions performed by body, mind, or speech is caused by these 5 factors that are discussed just now, right? So adhishtanam, the place, the body; karanam, the senses. No, these are the instruments. We use senses as the instrument for performing action, right? We use eyes to see. Seeing is the ability, right? So that ability we got because we have a sense. Touching is the ability. We have the hand to touch, right? So all the senses act as the instruments for performing action. You can lift something because you have hands, right? So karta, the soul, the desirer to perform action. And then endeavor, or the effort. He puts a lot of effort to perform action. So that is chesta. These are the important factors. The prime important factor, ultimate factor is Daivam. Is the sanctioner, right? Yeah. So these are the 5 factors in every action. So one question here is right or wrong action. Sometimes the action could be wrong. Even to perform wrong action, who has to sanction that? Super soul has to sanction that. You see? Why super soul sanctions wrong action? If he stops sanctioning wrong action, there is no reaction only. The jiva will never come to middle world. Correct? Why does Daivam sometimes, or sanctions wrong actions by the jiva? Any suggestion?
Because of the person's karma.
Person's karma. However, I mean, karma doesn't necessarily, just because somebody has, one can react out of his karma. Any other factors? For example,
Free will. Because of the free will that we have been given.
That was the answer I was looking for. The reason is we have free will, or the choice to do what we want, right? To do or not, to do this or to not to do this. Why Lord does not interfere in our free will, little free will?
Because that's why we are here in the material world, because we wanted to enjoy by ourselves.
Lord may not like us to perform wrong action, but he has to sanction because there is free will, and he wants to respect our free will, right? Lord respects our free will. If there is no free will, there is no choice for Jiva. If there is no choice for Jiva, then he is literally like a forced slave, correct? He is a forced slave of God. But Lord wants the Jiva to love by his own choice what he loves, whether it is material world or Krishna. So by giving that free or the free choice, there can be exchange of love. Can there be exchange of love between a slave and a master? It is not possible. A slave is somebody forced labor. So to have that natural love between Lord and the Jiva, Lord must ensure the Jiva has its free will to act in the way it chooses to. Is it clear? Any questions?
Prabhuji, oh, yes. What if there was no reaction to our actions? In this is happening only in the material world, right? That we have reactions to our actions.
Yeah.
Even though we have free will, it's not really free will, right? Because there are consequences to our actions.
Yeah. Otherwise, we don't learn. No? Suppose a child is there, you want to use blade. Mother says, don't use the blade. I mean, that is her desire. Like Lord doesn't want us to go. But sometimes child becomes naughty and he wants to do what he likes to. And he will use blade and cut his finger. Only when the finger is cut will he learn not to do that again, right? So Lord knows that the jiva will suffer. Even though he loves, he still knows that the jiva will suffer, but that's a temporary suffering. And he knows that the jiva will come back. Just like a child will make his choices based on his desire. Because he has given free will, he has to let him do what he wants. And when he chooses something outside Krishna, he naturally suffers and he develops the desire to come back. Yeah. Is that okay, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji, but that's because we have a material body that we are having those reactions. But ultimately, we have to go in the spiritual world. I guess.
If you go back to spiritual world, yeah, we'll have to go back to spiritual world. Where is the impetus for going back to spiritual world coming? How does the jiva in the material world get the impetus or the strong attachment or desire? Unless he realizes the suffering in the material world, will he ever desire to go back? That is the reason for the existence of suffering in the material world. So he has to understand that suffering in the material world is not his actual state of consciousness. So for that, Krishna arranges that. Okay, is that clear or still unclear?
Yeah. I think I guess I was thinking, yes, even when if everything was, if there was no reaction also, ultimately we get tired of or we get bored by whatever we have. We all always asking, we always questing for something more. And I was thinking, even if we get a lot of good stuff, we still get bored of it in the end, and that may propel one to wonder what's the best thing to ever that will never stop satisfying us.
Yeah, I mean, I think the karma theory is the best thing because you quickly do some nonsense and you suffer for it. So you immediately realize it. Otherwise, the process will be far more delayed, right? If there is no reaction, for our actions. Suppose you keep drinking because you like to drink, and your liver gets damaged, but there is no death, then the suffering only will increase, because as we involve in the material sense gratification, if there is no punishment, we'll forever do for all our life and after also, because you start developing. So if there is no reaction for material actions, there is no improvement in the jiva's material tendencies. So he will not get out of material tendencies. So that's why there is this suffering. Suffering is, is something concomitant in the material existence.
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you. It's a bitter medicine that you have to take.
It's a bitter medicine. Yeah. Yeah. Let's read this. Tatraivam sati kartaram.
Tatraivam sati kartaram
Kevalam tuya.
Atmanam kevalam yuttuyaha Pashyatayakrat buddhim. I did not get it, sorry. Can you please repeat it?
Pashyati akrita buddhitvan.
Pashyati yat krita buddhitvan
Asa pashyati durmati.
sa pashyati durmati. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the five factor, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are.
One thinks himself as the doer, giving up all the other factors, four factors, then definitely such a person is not very, very intelligent, because he's considering only one factor out of the five factors. Naturally, his knowledge is weak, and so he's going to suffer a lot. Please read this.
Prabhuji, one thing is cheshta, this soul's desire, is that cheshta, or where is the desire as a cause of action, is which of the karanams?
So karta is the doer, chasta is the effort, right? He puts some effort. It's not so the desire as a factor is part of the soul itself, the desire.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So please read.
A foolish person cannot understand that the super soul is sitting as a friend within and conducting his actions. Although the material causes are the place, the worker, the endeavor, and senses, the final cause is the Supreme, the personality of Godhead. Therefore, one should see not only the four material causes, but the supreme efficient cause as well. One who does not see the Supreme thinks himself to be the doer.
One who does not see the Supreme thinks himself to be the doer. Yeah. So just straightforward explanation of the verse. Yasya naham krito bhavo.
Yasya naham krito bhavo.
Yasya nalipyate.
Buddhir yasya nalipyate.
Sa ima lokam.
Hatvapi sa imam lokan.
Hantina nibadhyate.
Hantina nibadhyate. One who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, though he kills men in this world, does not kill, nor he is bound by his actions.
See, simple example, like I mentioned, one who kills men in this world, like a soldier, but if he does that by his own motivation, right? Motivated by false ego. False ego means one's own identity, right? There is no outside factor in the motivation of such action, right? So if the same soldier goes back to his village and he gets in a fight with somebody in his village, and because he has a gun, he takes the gun and shoots the person, he is actually motivated by false ego. And what happens to him if he does that? Will he be awarded or will he be arrested? Anyone? So if one person, sorry, all of you are muted. Hello? Can
We can hear you,
Yes,
Bhagavad.
Prabhuji.
so
Go ahead.
if a person is motivated by false ego and kills people, right? At his village, like I mentioned, what happens to him? Will he be arrested or not?
Yes, arrested.
Yeah, of course, he'll be arrested.
Unless you're in Texas.
Unless you are in Texas, okay. Yeah, that's also there. But the principle is that one will be punished because his actions are motivated by false ego, false identity. Ahankar. Ahankar means false
Ego.
identity. Yeah, false identity. What is our true identity then?
I'm
Understanding.
the servant of the Lord.
Yeah, that is our true identity. Yeah, the basic understanding is we are, first of all, our identity is not our body, right? We are different from the body. That is our basic fundamental principle. We are not this body. And what are we then? We are a spirit soul. What is spiritual? What is spirit soul? Spirit soul is part and parcel of God, and therefore is servant of God. So that is the full understanding of true ego. So false ego means one who misidentifies with himself to be the body, right? If he identifies himself as the body and naturally his intelligence is entangled, if he kills a person, he will be punished because he is motivated by false ego. But if a person is not motivated by false ego, his intelligence is clean and clear, and even though he performs actions like killing, like Arjuna killed so many people in the war, he will not get any reaction because it is not motivated by false ego. So he'll not be bound by his actions. There is no reactions to such actions.
So, Prabhuji, actions we perform as parents for the benefit of kids, would that be considered duty? Or again, for example, if I'm killing mosquitoes because I'm afraid they're going to bite my kid, or something like that. It's a very trivial example, but what would that be?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you see your child as Krishna's child and it is Krishna has kept you in your hand to protect them and nurture them and love them and care them, any actions to protect them will not be reactive. And as much as possible, we should avoid animal or hurting other life, because with every life there is also Paramatma with the life. But if there is harm happening and we need to immediately act, yeah, it's not wrong. That is fine because you are doing in self-defense, right? But if there is a way to avoid itself, the mosquitoes and through net or whatever, and don't even have a bite, then that is ideal. But sometimes we have to act. If a snake is biting, you need to act. So that is fine. It's not as bad as willfully acting in the wrong ways, right?
Yes, Prabhuji. So basically, any action that we do to protect our body,
Yeah.
is
Defense is fine. In defense, suppose you have to harm other, or you have to defend yourself. that is not going to cause any reactions. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Challenge.
Yeah. Can you read from here to here?
If one does not know that a super sanction is there, why should he act? But one who knows the instruments of work himself as the worker and the Supreme Lord as the Supreme Sanctioner is perfect in doing everything. Such a person is never in illusion. Personal activity and responsibility arise from false ego and godlessness, or a lack of Krishna consciousness.
Yeah. If he clearly knows Lord is the sanctioner of every action, and he knows the instrument of work himself as the doer, there is no reaction for such work. Okay. Jnanam jneyam parijnata. Anyone?
Jnanam neyam parigyana gyata, sorry. Jnanam neyam parigyata
Trividha karma chodana.
trividha karma chodana
Karanam karma karteti.
karanam karma karteti
Trividha karma sangraha.
trividha karma sangraha. Knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower are the three factors that motivate action. The senses, the work, and the doer are the three constituents of action.
There is a motivation factor, the action factors, right? So you perform an action. There are instruments, there are 5 causes of action, but actually to perform action, you need impetus, some motivation. Without any motivation, all of you will not come to temple, for example. You have a motivation that you want to develop love for Krishna, or you want to learn subject. You know, any action we perform, like going to school, there is a learning objective. So without objective, nobody performs any action, right? Not only the objective is needed, okay? Objective is needed. One has to develop knowledge about the objective, right? So knowledge about the action, the goal of the action, both are important, right? And then the knower or the doer, 3 factors. These 3 factors cause the impetus or the impetus factors of the action, right? And then how do you perform action? Through your senses. You read, you hear, for example, to learn the subject, right? So you use the instruments, ear, eyes, right? And the work is actual reading or hearing, that is work. And the doer or the self are the actual constituents of the actions, right? So those are the actors, and there is the factors that are motivation, right? So the 3 factors are knowledge, object of knowledge, and the knower, right? So knowledge, these are the knowledge factors: knowledge, knower, and object of knowledge. These cause the motivation, and these 3 perform the action. Yeah. So the impetus factors: JM, object of knowledge, knowledge, the goal of some action, and the object of knowledge, and the knower, right? Parignata. Parignata is the actual doer. Doer is the knower generally, right? Karma, action, right? Senses, the instruments of action, and the doer, right? The person who is actually desiring to perform action. So it's just a knowledge of an action, right? So the impetus factors and the constituent factors. So action is motivated by knower knowing the known, right? Knowing the known is the gnayam part. knower is the parignata, the person, and what is known is the knowledge, right? You need to know what, knowing the known, you actually perform the action. So that becomes the motivation factor. In other words, activity is motivated by a person perceiving a desirable object or goal. Right? So basically it says, before you perform action, there are a few other factors that are the impetus factors. What is that? What are those? There is the desired object or goal, and the knowledge about the goal, right? And the knower, or the person who actually has the knowledge. These are the impetus factors. Once inspired, you perform action, whatever it is, right? Good or bad. So that is the effort. And in that, there is effort factor. The endeavors, various endeavor, chesta, exerted by the karta. Who is the one who is doing it? That is the doer, karta. And the activity itself is called karma. So this is just a division of factors. Yeah, so we discussed this anyway. Okay, so we'll end the class here. Any questions so far? I think we already discussed a few questions during the session. If you have any other, you can still go for it. Okay, so then maybe no questions. I would like to end the class now. I have to go for food truck now. Thank you all for joining. I believe next week onwards, Prabhu will be there. So Prabhu will take the classes going forward. Thank you all for the opportunity to connect with you all. And in a couple of weeks from now, end of this month, we have Ananda Mela. So you're all encouraged to join and volunteer your time as well.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. It was really great hearing
Thank
from
you,
you.
Prabhuji. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you.
Hare Krishna.